Hi everyone, welcome to another Logos Circle Online. Special one today, not because we're missing our dearly beloved Sterling, but because we're joined by the human tech team. Lots of fun stuff to talk about, privacy, obviously, and also why systems that respect humans should be the default. So your host today is Roxana, a familiar face, frequent speaker on these. But I'm going to pass you over to her for our special disclaimers and to kick things off.
Thank you, Logos. Hi, everyone. Great to be here today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Vietnam. Always wanted to do that. Quick disclaimer before we begin. This space is for informational and educational purposes only. Nothing shared here constitutes financial, investment, trading, or legal advice. All opinions expressed by guests and participants are their own and do not represent the views of the Logos Network, the hosts, or any affiliated entities. The appearance of any project in this space does not imply any kind of endorsement, partnership, or recommendation. As always, cryptocurrency and blockchain carry significant risks, including the potential for a total loss of capital. Always do your own research and consult qualified professionals before making any decisions. And thank you for joining. We'll keep today's session respectful, productive, and most of all, insightful. With that being said, I hope I can do a great job at not as great as Sterling. He is absolutely unreplaceable, but will do my best today. We have some brilliant guests that will cover the topic in the second half. Our Tuesday spaces are very much focused on localism, grassroots, activism, that are happening on the ground, and this sort of intersection of technology and society. So, having human tech with us today, and I'll make an introduction later on into who exactly is behind it and a bit of their background. But having them today here for us is a great opportunity to really go deep into the subject. I guess it's a good start to go through the usual logo circle updates. I would say, without putting you on the spot, Amelia, do you want to go first and tell us what has happened at the Lisbon circle, but also we had the Porto circle. I've noticed some heavy conversations were carried, so I would love to learn more about it.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for carrying us today, Roxana, in lieu of Sterling's weather emergency. We're also having a huge storm here in Portugal. Seems like all over the world right now, some wild weather reflecting the wild energies around. Um, yeah, so girl, it looks like isn't here. I was hoping she'd be able to share the update on Porto, or she'll be stewarding it moving forward, but maybe she can come on next week. But yes, we had the first IRL meeting of the Porto Circle. It was a small group, but I think that actually worked in our favor because of yes, it is quite a heavy topic. We were discussing some of the lived experiences of the domestic violence survivors that joined the circle. And this was informing the privacy app that the circle will be building. So the idea is to provide a private community space for survivors. And kind of with that, Girl will be moderating that community and will be raising funds and crypto donations to provide emergency escape resources for those survivors. Um, so kind of what this discussion was about was the survivors kind of informing on how they had tried to access help from existing
Hey folks, sorry about that one. Not sure what happened, but the space unfortunately died. Just trying to get everyone back on stage now to continue. Amelia, are you on stage now?
I am.
Is it worth? Should we give it another minute or two just to get everyone in, and then you can go over? Porto or Girl can take over.
Yeah, nice. I mean, if Girl would like to come on stage and share the Porto updates, I think it's even more, even better coming from her, and then I can kind of update on
Hello.
Lisbon and PS. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. Technical problems, weather problems, maybe. Yeah, look, it was amazing. So I'm going to be all madly gushy. It went really, really well. And we were in a massive storm last week. Like I said, I like to think we brought the thunder. I didn't realize. So went to Porto. You know, it was a bit hyped up anyway, because it's quite intense to talk about this because it's so personal. But Amelia was there, which was really, really wonderful. And people didn't make it because of the weather. And to be honest, I think in a way it created a more intimate space, which allowed me to feel very safe. The house location where we're doing it is wicked. They take over spaces that they're trying to give life back into. So it's the top of a shopping mall. So there's a security guard. So for the ever conscious safety scaredy cat, that was really good. We had the members that came, or the people that came, were impressive to say the least. Super humbling, totally amazing, inspiring, and wonderful humans. And that was also really great. And we spoke about, I was able to, am I going? I was able to speak about, is everything okay? Okay, I don't know. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Mia. Yeah, so I was able to speak about the issues and to explain that every part of the tech proposal that I wrote was from an attempt that was made to leave. And so I mean, I don't know much about it, but I didn't get within this scenario and what many other, in fact, all survivors find is that it's not humans that they're going to find a safe solution, and hence I'm here. So that was really, it was so rewarding, and it felt very like, okay, we're on the right path. And so we just ended up having a really, really great discussion about the issue, and it was really great for me to understand how crypto is working and looking in Porto, and the differences. I was asking all about that, the differences between Lisbon and Porto. And yeah, it was really great. I don't know if I'm answering this in the best way, because it wasn't necessarily the typical way that it would be run, but it just, I mean, I bounced off being massively inspired, and I felt more confident within the campaign to crack on. And those of you that will see in one of the circles, the Porto thing, I'm looking for a solution for, to get the community on to Signal, which is so exciting. And it was a really good opportunity to check with these amazing individuals that turned up, who are like, they've done some amazing things which can only help the circle, which was just so cool. I was like, is this all right? And they were like, yeah, you're doing the right thing. So that was just a really cool thing when you are looking for a bit of reassurance and a bit of witnessing. So yeah, I don't know if that answers everything, but if you have any questions, like, I really am here for it. But yeah, it was wonderful. It was a really beautiful thing, right, Amelia?
Yes, it was. I think, like you said, to kind of hear two people who are um, like working in the technology side of Web3, and also working on the campaigning side.
Yeah.
So like so to have people who are experts in both those two areas, which the winnable issue in Porto is around, and to have them kind of validate what you had proposed as solutions that could actually kind of work and support you being able to implement those in the country. I think that was super valuable. So for those who don't know, Girl proposed this digital escape egress, so a private privacy app to help domestic violence survivors escape surveillance from their abusers, find community, and be able to access emergency funds through crypto fundraising that we'll be doing. And the other side of that is a campaign for safety in numbers. And
Yeah. Took me to, yeah, sorry, and
yes.
thank you for getting me back on track, because I was all in that, oh my god, I was in my feelings, guys. Yeah, so the other part of the campaign is that once the community is safe, so once they've got like a space for that support and that all of these avenues to safety for all of us, then I feel confident to go and lobby the European Union. And one of the members, just saved me a year of work. A year of work. He's like, I can introduce you to an MEP that would take me like I don't know how long to navigate my way in front of. So that was just, yeah, just so validating. And I'm ever the optimist. I really do think that we can do it, and I think that the guys that were there were like, yeah, it's doable. So it's just given the whole campaign a massive boost of energy, morale, and inspiration. Does that I don't know, get me back on track, Amelia, if I've wandered off.
No, you've got it.
Back in my feelings, guys. I'm hopeful.
Well, I think this is it, right? Like winnable issues for people to be giving their free time and volunteering. This has to be something that emotionally resonates with people. Otherwise, like they'll just kind of fall off and there will be apathy around it, right? So you're making me so much more motivated, and I've been so positive working with you on this.
Yeah, thanks,
And
Amelia.
of course, yeah. So and that's really what circles are trying to do, right? So I think having lived experience from domestic violence survivors in the circle who themselves tried to use the existing mechanisms to get that emergency support and be able to exit and escape from their abuser, and those avenues not having worked, like this is exactly the type of thing that we tried to pick up with winnable issues. It's like it's the distance from existing institutions and state systems and what they're providing, and then the reality of what's actually needed, right? That's where we step in with circles and winnable issues and try to build alternatives through community solutions.
Yeah, it's a pretty inspiring time, because obviously for everyone in these circles, it's like you can add on to this. And if there are things that you think of, like, we're here for it. And it's a great test bed for all the tech, which is something that I'm really interested in, because I do not come from a tech background. So finding tech solutions, like I was banging on about nodes, like it's just so exciting. It's like pirate radio. And I was like, yeah, okay, now I get it. So yeah, so for me, it's also a really great learning space. There are people in the circle that have got so much experience. So that's where we're at. And I'm trying to think of what else. So yeah, moving the community over to Signal, and that's really exciting. I managed to get a burner. So it's just all systems go, and then looking to be its parallel society. So trying to do something there where maybe we can do like an installation and get the signatures we need. We need over 1 million signatures to reach, to even get in front of the European Parliament. And that's going to be a really great help to do that. And I think, I might see if I can, just put together something really, that's going to engage people and get them activated. So yeah, well, it's going for it. That's the first week. It's very exciting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, girl. Oh, gosh, sounds like it was a really good first one. Um, Amelia, do we have any other updates from the Gisborne side or from the other circles, or should we go to the LA one?
I don't have too many updates from Lisbon. We're just working to try and get approval from the local government for our volunteer gardening day with the Lisbon Circle in Quinta do Mocho on the week of Parallel Society. Yes, it's surprisingly things have not been moving so fast with the local government trying to get that planning approval. But the organization that we've reached out to. Have a lot of experience doing this, so we still kind of just pushing forwards and fingers crossed we'll be able to have that planned by the time Parallel Society comes around. We do have some other, really exciting news for Parallel Society and Circle Stewards. Each of the Circle Stewards have been invited to join us at Parallel Society, and we'll be running a number of different kind of onboarding circles and formative circles for people during the festival. If you're interested in learning more about circles or starting one in your city, we're super excited to have a number of the logo stewards from around the world joining us.
I would say now it's a good time to mention that Parallel Society is our counterculture festival. It is happening 6th to 7th of March in Lisbon. It's going to be quite massive. Day one is a unconference with several coalition zones where people can build, explore, discuss. And the second day is a music festival celebrating local culture and local artists. And if you want to learn more, you can go to ps.logos.co. It would probably be a good time at some point to share some links in the comments of the spaces, including
I'm way ahead of it.
your way of it. Ah, perfect. So as a link to PS Parallel Society. Probably good to also share later on the winnable issues we're working on circles, since this is space is about circles. And let's go to Chair LA update.
Hello. Thanks for regrouping with us, folks. Thank you, Roxana, for hosting today. Shout out to Texas. You know the only two things you can find in Texas? Sterling knows. Los Angeles Circle update real quick. There isn't two. Actually, there's one update from last week. And last week I went over the work group session that we did, which a member of this space was in. And we can go deeper into it. Oh, I hope you don't hear an echo. Hold on. Everybody hold on. Hold on. All right, that's better. The next LA Circle is not up on the Luma yet, but it'll be in the second week of February. We had a lighter turnout for the work group session. That was the most recent session. However, it was a very core and dedicated group, and I'm very happy about that. And we discussed specifically growth and tech PM snowflake roles. We haven't locked anything in quite yet because I want to sort of make it available to a wider audience, but by the next session, I think we should lock it in. We have a group on Signal. We also have the Telegram group that's part of the wider circles Telegram group or community. If you are in Los Angeles or Southern California, I'd say like the northern border being the very northern tip of the San Fernando Valley, and the southern border maybe being something like San Clemente. Yeah, I'm extending it all the way to San Clemente. We can argue about whether that's appropriate or not later. And I'd say all the way east, as far as Big Bear, you can make it to the next Los Angeles networking space. We had a little technical session the other day, myself and one of the other LA members trying to spin up and successfully spinning up to a degree a Logos blockchain node. Definitely got one running locally with no peers, but one step at a time. I think it might be some of the first independent nodes. I don't know. It's still DevNet, but we we got some nodes running at least locally and opened a few issues. I'm very excited to continue chasing peers on the Logos blockchain DevNet. What else is happening? There is a Los Angeles forum thread at forum.logos.co. So please contribute there if you are interested or have ideas or otherwise. I also would like to direct you now, as previously mentioned a moment ago, to the Jumbotron above us. And if you could like and retweet that first pin tweet to get eyes back on our dropped space. And the second pin tweet is the link to Parallel Society, where you can get tickets and get involved. I'll also mention that there is a Logos community on the Status app, and the Status app is quite private. I have more, but I'll save it for now. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube yet, by the way, please subscribe to the Logos Network channel there. LA-wise, there's one more thing. I have FERPs written up. It's an early draft, and I want to go over it one more time before I post it for what we're now calling the coordination app, nay, the ZK Nextdoor app. And basically we want to do all of the same features that were discussed, but moving away from the reporting on your neighbors sort of space that Nextdoor seems to fill, and focus a lot more on coordination, communication, interacting with those most near you geographically, locally, as that is the, well, maybe too opaque, winnable issue that we have settled on, or one of them, which is not nearly as, I am lucky enough to know the names and coordinate to a very small degree with my neighbors. And I think I do not think that very much is not the norm where we are. And it's a foundation where a lot of the primitives that we'll need for the coordination app will need for all of the other apps. So like identity, login, privately geo confirming your location so you can be part of a specific group. These are all issues that are going to be needed for further apps. So that's, unless we have a better idea coming through, this is what we're pursuing. And I'll shut my app now. Thank you, folks.
The impossible has happened. Yeah, I think we live in times where it's really weird how we trust complete strangers to drive us to places and take us home and fly us around the world, but we can't trust our neighbors. That is something that we should probably fix. I think, Maria, you mentioned that you would like to speak about to the LA Circle. I would love to hear a bit from your perspective as a participant and member.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So it's been a pleasure working with Chair, and this is kind of how Human Tech kind of got pulled into doing this X Space with you guys, because Chair and I have been meeting up and talking via these LA circles about software that we can make now that uses decentralized and privacy preserving primitives now. And after a few brainstorming sessions, we settled on something that's kind of analogous to like a ZK privacy preserving Nextdoor app, because as he mentioned, the primitives and the infrastructure that's necessary to bring something like that into play is something that'll be really, really useful to any more specific purpose-built applications that other circles might want to use. So we're in the process of kind of going through and figuring out what the tech stack needs to look like. And I'm personally really excited about it because I got very, very inspired at Edge City, long conversations about reputation and how it's kind of crazy. And Roxana, you touched on this. that reputation is now something that we trust complete strangers to have as long as they have above a certain number of stars on their profile, which is wild, considering that trust is much more complicated than, 4.8 stars. Um, so we're really excited to be digging into that. Really excited. I'm personally really excited to be talking with people like at the forefront of like, privacy preserving, composable reputation research. And it's a tool. This is a tool that I would want to use personally, if it existed. So really, the research is the search, as they say. And I think that's about it. Just Chair, it's been a pleasure and look forward to continuing building this with you.
Thank you. It's been a learning experience. It's been
Yeah.
very rewarding, and I can't wait to get some tangible output.
Right? Yeah, and I think that's like an area where, both our worlds are super aligned is we just want to make some software now that uses these privacy preserving primitives because they're ready. They're ready to scale. Let's do it. And I love the international footprint you guys have as well. It's fantastic.
Rumor has it that someone in the London circle saw back in back in November saw a logos presentation via the convent, which is the community for human tech. And he's building AI privacy. Don't know if he'll be with us today, Privacy Mage, but he mentioned back in November that he learned about logos from you guys.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. He's the awesome core contributor to our Covenant group. So I'm very happy to hear that the amplification is happening both ways.
Spread the bug. Um, okay, I think we've had quite a lot of updates. I'll go very, very quickly through the London one, which happened yesterday, which was quite good. And then we're going to jump into the conversation. I think some of the things I'll point out from the London one will probably resonate with some of the stuff that you were mentioning, Maria, and some of the other things that we're recurringly mentioning around our Logos movement, themes around the Logos movement. Um, in London, last night, we had the fifth Logo Circle. We had 17 people that participated, 2 women and 15 men. Someday we'll have more women, but it's better to have a start at least. We had really interesting conversations. It's very nice to see at some point that you kind of have recurring participation from different people that that have been to a circle before or have some knowledge of logos. So they're not completely new to what we're trying to do and to some of the themes that we propose. Um, some of the really good observations from last night, and shout out to Alex who took a lot of notes and delivered them um, last night very late. We we want a pragmatic solution and sort of a new language because we feel like anytime we say decentralized or we say blockchain, it kind of has a very uh, it's become a dirty word. It's become used in in a way that doesn't really represent what it actually stands for. And a lot of projects have failed in delivering. A lot of promises were made. So whenever we bring the idea of this decentralization to the table, people feel like it's overpromise and under-deliver. So we're trying to find different languages to make it more appealing and more normie so people can understand. Um, our winnable issue is around digital ID, which is a major subject, not just for the UK, throughout the world. Um, it's most likely that if we can't fight this 100%, to completely remove it as we're becoming more digital as well, we would at least explore privacy preserving solutions that can be owned and governed by the people. So we're looking into tooling, into access and permissions. We're looking at the um, the ways we could actually provide tooling that can't be seized by government. So in the idea of the more nodes that participate into a network, the more decentralized it is, the more distributed it is, the less likely it is to be um, seized by one central authority. We've covered that the dissemination of data to third parties is one of the dangers that we're facing whenever we're using systems imposed by government, system imposed by central authorities. It's usually not the authority imposing it that is actually developing the tools. There's always this layer of permanency without the temporary side to it. So it's essentially a permanent record, as Snowden says, a permanent digital footprint that damages the individual's right to privacy. We talked about the idea that selective disclosure as a technology is not there yet. So we had people that were building solutions and exploring this quite proactively. And the idea that at the end of the day, in a world where you have AI, you have bots, you don't know if the people you're talking to outside of a room are actually real or not. And we've had this situation before in our spaces where we had AI chatbots. And it took us a while to realize that they were actually AI chatbots because they were so good. The idea is, what is actually proof of being human? So some of these topics were raised last night, and I think for us, it's an ongoing discussion that we are having. And some of the I think some of the themes that I raised for the London Circle, kind of to close the loop with circle updates, would probably feed into the conversation that we are having today with human tech. And then on that end, I would like to formally introduce you both. Um, on the space today, we have Shadi El Damati, PhD, who is a neuroscientist turned cryptographer. Hope I spelled the. Did I pronounce correctly? I got a thumbs up, so maybe it was correct.
It's perfect.
Perfect, I did it. You know, it had that kind of slang with Slim Shady, but taking it back. Neuroscientist turned cryptographer, co-founder and CEO of Human Tech and the Holonym Foundation. Shadi's background in neuroscience shaped a core insight that technology doesn't just serve humans, it affects how we think, trust, and coordinate. And he's joining us from his account. And then we have Maria, who is behind the Human Tech account, a former operations lead in the legal tech sphere, now building governance systems in Web3, obsessed with digital human rights. I like that. And occasionally writes science fiction. Also like that. Usually about the futures we're accidentally building. Maria also participates in the Logos LA Circle. I would like to take this opportunity to let both of you share a bit about your journey, how you got here. What is human tech? What are you building? Why are you building it? What are some of the projects? I think we mentioned one of them. And just, yeah, give us a TLDR on human tech.
Thanks for the intro. Yeah, it's been really nice to join your intimate space here and be a wallflower and see how things are coming together. It's feels pretty cozy in here. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, happy to give the TLDR. I think some of you guys might have heard of us already, but Human Tech is a framework for embedding digital rights into technology by design. So what that means is starting with some base primitives that we assume to be, let's say, self-evident or things that we just take at face value, such as our ability to communicate, express ourselves, own assets, represent ourselves, have an identity that allows us to travel, to vote, to represent ourselves in local government, etc. And instead of relying on, say, written documents or relying on external enforcement, what would happen if we use the power of, let's call it Turing computation or effective computation, to put these rights into something entropically hard, meaning that we put them into code that's very difficult to change and use the power of decentralization and engineered incentives to make these things as immutable as possible, to make them as resilient as possible. That's what human tech does. The way that we think about it is all of these things flow from self custody. You can't really have privacy without self custody. You can't have end to end encryption for your communications without self custody. You can't have coordination or voting or governance or anything like that if you can't ensure that a person's able to hold their key and to bind that key to themselves in a way that is recoverable, that's safe, that's secure, that's private. So the very core foundation of human tech is a network called Human Network. It's a VOPRF network for the nerds out there. It's exactly the same architecture that WorldCoin switched to recently after finding out about it and learning about how we were doing it. And it's what really powers our ability to provide human bound keys or human keys to participants in the ecosystem or participants around the world. On top of the human network are built a couple different ecosystem projects. One specifically for personhood. So, how do you prove that you are a person and obtain all of the rights and access that comes with that? That's called the Human Passport, which is used to be known as the Gitcoin Passport, which was acquired and absorbed into the human tech ecosystem about a year ago. The other project is called WAP, or Wallet as a Protocol. And this is us taking the unbridled primitive power of programmable self custody and key derivation from the human network and putting it to work into a really robust, secure wallet framework where wallets become protocols, right? Instead of applications. And there's some really cool stuff behind the scenes with WAP where you can embed it into any app. dApps developers can use it to have very native, simple Web2 onboarding to apps. You never know that you're interacting with world-changing cryptography. You're just creating an account, but you get access to a human key to self-custody that then grants you all these other rights. Yeah, and that's about it. I mean, I think in terms of what we're focused on these next couple weeks and months, we're really interested in first off, I think booting up our governance around the human network. We're just about to hit 3 million human keys created in the next week or two. And we're also rolling out a bunch of updates on the wallet side and a bunch of really exciting integrations and developments coming that way. So I'd love to point you guys towards the current, how should I call it? I guess activation or campaign for bootstrapping or proto governance, which is the covenant of humanistic technologies. So, this covenant is our way of enrolling or, let's say, matriculating the community into governance and work streams within the organization as we decentralize over the coming years. So, it's pretty simple. The covenant is basically a 10 principle manifesto, more of a constitution than anything of how we think about humanistic tech or human tech, how we define it, how do we know it when we see it, and how to participate and build in it. So you can sign the covenants, create your own self-custody key or use one that you already have, prove your personhood, and then that sets you up for participating in governance down the road, either as a delegate or as a contributor. So I've shared a tweet in the space there. So yeah, that's us. I do want to put a pin in something around proof of geolocation. I think there's some interesting developments we've been exploring recently, and happy to share our learnings on that front.
Yeah, would be very interested. I do have some questions, but they're gonna come later on. I think yeah, if you want to share a bit more on proof of geolocation, and then we'll let Maria talk a bit about the governance aspects.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, let me actually let's see. I have this. so we released a couple was it months ago now. We released an integration with ZK email that lets you prove residency, right? So we weren't really so much interested in where you were from, but just that you were getting regular verifiable deliveries to your address. And we were using ZK email's regular expression matching in zero knowledge to parse email accounts locally, so on the client side device, and matching emails that we know came from Amazon or Uber that verify like, hey, like you were actually going to a certain location repeatedly over a certain amount of times. And we built like an ML AI model that helped us classify like just how strong of a signal that is that this is an actual person, not a bot, because bots don't really take Ubers. And you can do a lot of unique pattern matching across that. So what's interesting is you can take something like this with ZK email and broaden it in a way where if you have like a really good signal of, say, from like a third party, whether it's like a lease agreement or some combination of factors that could be thresholded based off of like just how much, let's say, is at stake for proving geolocation, I think you can do a really good job with the tools that ZK Email has. So those are open source, and yeah, we're happy to share kind of like any details from the implementation and the thinking that went on it on our side. Um, and I think like also the stamps are pretty like those can be modified to include like more specifics about where you're proving from.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think some of the concepts that you just mentioned could be something that we could use for the London the London Circle is sort of exploring a prototype for a decentralized um, digital identity that just can be tested between circle members, and if it works, we can bring it further. But again, it's the idea that we trust each other. We know we are who we say we are, without revealing any private information about us. But it serves a localized purpose, um, which is what any kind of identity as part of a group setup should actually cover. But yeah, we
Hey.
haven't we haven't heard from you from the Logos Circle LA update, so go for it.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think this actually dovetails really nicely with what Shadi was sharing about the proof of location, right? Because that's a that is a really important part of information, piece of information for projects that are location based. And part of what the logo circles are trying to accomplish is building software and tools that, empower local communities. And, historically, in order to share that type of information, you've had to give over like all sorts of personal information. I mean, how many applications do we have to upload our entire life story and like government issued IDs to? So I think there's a lot of really awesome like synergy between these like ZK like authentication technologies and then also like the Logos tech stack, right? Because it doesn't really matter if you use like ZK to log into Google or if you use like ZK to log into like the equivalent to Facebook. Like you need something for that coordination, somewhere for that coordination to happen once identities have been proven. Um, and I think that's one of the really cool things about the Logos circles is trying to drive the adoption of these like privacy preserving, like decentralized primitives. So super cool stuff. And on another, I guess like on another dimension, we're kind of doing something similar. So this is our governance project, and we refer to that as the Covenant of Humanistic Technologies. So as it stands now, it's our grant-backed ecosystem for builders that are working on privacy preserving and human-aligned tools. So in a way, it's kind of an open source accelerator. And the way we are running this is we've set out a signal. So what started as a document with these like 10 design principles has turned into, I guess it's been close to a year, like a year's worth of like digital town halls where that's actually where I met Erin, through these digital town halls. And then it kind of like percolated up into like this awesome year-end residency that we had at Edge City in Patagonia. And the amazing part about this was that it was also kind of like it was a very like a philosophically and values driven meeting of Web3 and decentralized industry folks, but it was also kind of like a little hackathon. So one of the main objectives of our residency was to kind of cultivate an environment where digital products could get made. So by the end of those 10 days, we had several really promising prototypes that use decentralized primitives in some capacity. And then moving forward, we're going to be really, really focused on, making sure that any projects that, well, we're referring to it as getting curated, but projects that get curated by our our ecosystem are really driving forward these primitives and doing so thoughtfully, right? Because there's such a thing as the right tool for the right job. So, like one example of that is a voting project that got started during this residency that uses it's like a ZK WhatsApp bot. And I know there's been a lot of controversy about WhatsApp this past week not actually being end-to-end encrypted, but we can get into that later. But it uses ZK methodology to prove location, improve zip code so that people who are in remote areas could theoretically vote just by interfacing with an app they already have on their phones. So that's been really exciting. And now that we've had this journey over the past year of going from like document to digital to in-person community gathering, we are in the process of launching another digital home for all this. So I'm not sure we have a decent amount of human tech adjacent folks on this call, but we launched the manifest.human.tech app, and this is a place where we've basically made a home for people to submit any projects that are aligned with the human-centric digital human rights view of technology that we have, and that's been super exciting. So that is our main project right now. And a little bit about my background and why I've gotten so interested in this is because it is, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call agree with this, but it is well past the time where we should start building for a post-surveillance society. We are in a phase of technological acceleration where we have tools available to start building the infrastructure so that we don't have to rely on institutions to not do certain things. We want to have infrastructure where they can't. And I think it's really exciting to be collaborating with various companies and folks in this space that are not only values aligned, but also technologically aligned. Like as Shadi mentioned, I mean, what was the number? There's been millions of human keys that have been generated. I mean, these tools are already operating at a scale that can, and the scale is in a position where it can expand quite a bit further. And it would be really awesome to get developers using these tools instead of like more centralized alternatives. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I've been really, as Roxana mentioned, I'm obsessed with the concept of digital human rights. I don't think that privacy is for the paranoid anymore. It's for people who want to have a sense of digital wellness. I used to work in the digital forensics space doing legal investigations, so I've seen just how much data is captured on people, and also how like reactive a lot of institutional changes, right? So even like GDPR, love it, but it's a reactive defense. It's not a structural change. And working with aligned teams on structural change is going to be really exciting. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what can be accomplished over the next year.
Question time. Um, Thank you. Thank you um, for a bit of the scoping around human tech. God, I was just thinking through the conversation. Let's see. For Shadi, I don't know if you saw that recent interview from Meredith, the president of Signal, and she mentioned that the way AI agents are evolving, where you grant them access to your device, it has access to your apps, it has access to your contacts, to your calendar. It will be able to make phone calls for you and book in, for example, your birthday celebration. So it takes off this load from this admin load from your personal life. And she kind of mentioned, well, in that kind of scenario, then the sort of end-to-end encryption um, that is highly privacy preserving in applications like Signal, but it's also quite valid in other kind of applications that we use for communications for our day-to-day life. She kind of mentioned end-to-end encryption sort of becomes irrelevant just because no matter how good the technology and the applications are, the fact that you would have an AI agent that you don't really um it's not your personal AI agent. It's something that you build on top of technologies that are not necessarily privacy preserving. That's a worrying component, at least in what they're doing, for example. So I'm kind of wondering, um, have you looked into that? How humans are optimizing their day-to-day lives, their online behaviors, with the use of more automated tools, with the use of AI agents, and where do we stand delivering technologies that are privacy preserving? Um, Kind of, where do you stand in that kind of discussion?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and this is kind of, I'm really glad you asked this. This is something I've been thinking a lot about, and kind of one of my favorite topics to dwell on. But yeah, let's take a zoom out, 10,000 foot view on what's really happening here. I think like the average person sees AI as, oh, AI is going to solve all my problems. It's going to do my work for me. It's going to book my flights for me. It's going to manage my money for me. It's going to book my doctor's appointments for me. It's going to analyze my prescription data, my health data. Now, for the average person that uses technology, you just look at your phone, it unlocks, and you don't maybe even realize it's unlocking, and you do your thing, right? You don't really think much about the security environment, or you don't really think much about the access control that you have unless you get a really annoying push notification that says, hey, change your password, or add 2FA or something like that. And even, not to like, shit on Apple or anything. I think they, deep within the Apple settings, they do have the ability for your Apple account to become self-custodial, but they bury this so deep because what's that? What is it, like a Mark Twain quote? Like, about democracy, just talk to the average voter. It's the same thing when it comes to like security or privacy. There's a reason why Apple buried the ability to turn your phone into a self-custodial, let's say like container for your life. It's because if you lose that seed phrase, it's the your account's bricked. You're totally lost. So I mean, just to really, I think, narrow in on the issue here is Meredith. A lot of people miss the point in Meredith's comment, and I think a lot of them are tech dudes that are threatened by a woman. I think that was my impression, but they really missed the point, which is that yes, of course, if you're going to want to use AI for everything that it promises, you're going to have to let AI through the front door. You're going to have to give it the keys to the Porsche. It's going to have to be in control. At least that's the status quo today, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah, so like when we talk about AI, say, feel free to jump in whenever, but yeah, when we talk about AI making payments for us, booking flights for us, doing stuff with our health, that means we're effectively giving it access to our keys, our keys to sign, our passwords, our accounts. And like a big part of what's been like I think this conversation is really linked to like all the craziness about Claudebot, where people are running Claudebot and giving it access to their machine, and then it's just like taking over everything, and now these people are getting attacked and getting doxxed and stuff.
That's exactly what I wanted to bring up because it's so hot right now. It's happening right now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I think like Claudebot really just shows Meredith's point in color, bright, beautiful contrast color, that encryption is meaningless if you're handing over the encryption keys at a convenience, right? Um, so I mean, this is like a really difficult problem, right? We talk about agents in crypto, we talk about agents in wider tech spheres, but what does it really mean to have an agent acting on your behalf, right? And then what happens when people have access to as many agents as they have the resources to spin up those agents, right? Like, for example, if you and I are going to apply for the same job and it's a performance based test, and we need to, say, for example, crunch a bunch of data or solve a very difficult problem, what's to stop me from being more well resourced to just spin up way more compute capacity and just brute force my way? So, and then those can send the wrong signals. Like maybe there are places where we want to reward that sort of thing for like, say, competitive dynamics and very low level problems, but it really contorts and distorts really the things that we want to be optimizing for. For example, like hiring the best talent or the most creative people or etc. So yeah, so there is a solution to this, right? There is a way to approach this. It's something that has been talked about in small developer circles and something that we've been super focused on for a little while now. Happy to talk more about it, but basically the idea here is you distinguish between, you always have the human as the root signatory for these sorts of things, right? Like access is never elevated beyond the human, and it's really important that you actually bound your private key to the human as well, but that's very difficult to do while preserving safety and privacy.
Thank you. Chair, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was thinking, one thing that I've been thinking is I've been watching the Claudebot not fiasco, but the fun happening on the timeline. I like Austin Griffith very much. He's done a lot for Ethereum and developers, and he has his version of Claudebot running around, and now they're making alliances with other people's Claudebots, and I'm actually excited to catch up on what's been happening because it's cutting edge, if nothing else. But it makes me wonder, he's the first one. Well, I mean, other people, quote unquote, vouch for their agents and unleash them, and people can use them. And we've seen Spritz chat use something similar. But how might it work? Like, how might you cryptographically vouch that this agent is the source of this person's work specifically and make it more trustworthy to you? It's like there's eventually going to come about an agent that's too tempting to use for whatever functionality or objective you have. So you're going to need a level of trust in, forget the privileges and rights that it has on your machine, but if you use it, like what are the consequences? What are the other consequences of using it, perhaps? And I'm a lot more apt to use something that I know Austin, if it can be cryptographically verified that this is something Austin made versus a random person. I don't know. I'm just only now getting into this into these ideas, but curious if you have any perspectives on it. I have a few other questions as well, but I don't want to fill it all up.
Yeah, happy to jump in. Roxana, I see you're unmuted.
Oh, I was just going to bring up the um, some of the exploitation we see in systems that rely on reputation that has no way of verifying that that online reputation is actually um, or has been built or achieved ethically. For example, it got me thinking when Chair was mentioning about things that would could happen in the future, and the mind spins up kind of potential scenarios that could happen in the future if people based on historical data. But I'll let you answer his question first, then we go back to it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think reputation is an emergent phenomenon if we can solve the first problem, which is entity identity mapping. So a lot of digital identity, I think, in it, discussions or conversations or even architectures don't make a distinction between, say, the actual physical entity that's creating the representative identity, and that can be a one-to-many mapping, right? Typically, it's one entity that maps at least to one identity or one avatar. And for humans, this can be like across the board, right? I can have a Twitter account, I can have a Google Scholar account, etc. So I have many identities, but it's the same physical person that's creating them. Now, one idea that I think has been super helpful, because it's crazy, like uh, when this idea of proof of personhood came out, it was not really exactly clear why this is important. I think like WorldCoin really, was the first one to like show, hey, this might be really, really important for building AI systems at scale that really truly transform society. But I don't think like a lot of us really got what the significance was, um, until I think people started talking about delegated personhood, right? So cryptography gives us the tools to make that assertion, that attestation of provenance, that this is Austin Griffith, that this account was signed by his key, which is derived from his biophysical likeness, or as close to it as can be with the hardware assumptions that we can make, and that this specific identity, it's an extension of him. So with delegated personhood, really for agents to truly proliferate in a way that's some positive for society, we need to have the ability to temporarily lend or vouch for an agent in a way that's one of one and unique, right? That says this agent is my projection of myself, and I'm basing this on a cryptographic object that I've created that has certain trust assumptions associated with it, right? That don't might not necessarily be perfect or incredibly hard, but are good enough for, say, the set of commerce and social coordination use cases that are unlocked by that. Yeah.
Quick question here: would that be um, temporarily defined? It would have an expiration date, this kind of verification process or credential process, or it would just be a one-off. Um, I signed this message. It proves that this agent, this avatar, this digital version is a digital version of myself.
Yeah, I think like going all the way down to the root, you would have some trusted execution environment. I'm not talking about like, a cloud-based infra. I mean, it could be, but really like we would need to root the trust on the hardware device. I think hardware is super important. And maybe Apple will build these things. I mean, they're really close, but they're just not available for anyone to just build. You have to buy them from them. But so you assume that you have some key that can vouch for you locally and let you do all the ZK, all the privacy preserving computation locally on your device, assuming FHE isn't, quite ready for all these use cases. And then you can set whatever roles or permissions that you want. You can say, hey, I'm going to spin up actually 100,000 agents. And I am going to iterate through delegating my personhood to each of them and then give them an objective function with some, say, like reinforcement learning scheme, where I'm going to reward those agents that impersonate me and effectively deliver on the goals I set the best for them. So you can just freely rotate between these different agents and then over time have like an evolutionary selection process where only those agents that accomplish the goals that you care about are selected to represent you.
Got it. That would be interesting because I can tell you, um, I used to work very closely with two major freelancing platforms. At one point, they were some of the biggest in the world without naming them. Um, and they had a reputation system built, and they also have a credential verification system. And I think Maria can probably confirm, but to verify someone's credential at maybe 10 years ago was something like at least a $50 cost to it per verification. Like just verifying that someone had a bachelor degree from MIT would come with a cost associated. Um, in those kind of systems where you have supply and demand, and it's digital workforce, right? Freelancing, future of work. Um, there were many cases where even though the platform, which was the provider, um, had in place ways to verify your identity, ways to verify your credentials, um, ways to quantify your reputation in time, right, and enable access to services on a leveled basis based on your reputation score. Even though it had all of that, um, in time, um, this kind of system became heavily exploited, right? So, from personal experience, I had a startup back in 2017. We were working with a developer team on that freelancing platform. Um, we realized along the way, but took about 6 months. We thought we had Russian developers working on the project. They were not Russian. It turns out they were Chinese. But the system um, did the verifications, and on the system level, it showed that they were Russian, right? So they clearly had fake IDs, and they were claiming to be someone they were not. Um, then we saw that there were people that could fake their reputation by bringing in their friends and family to offer them jobs, gig projects, small amounts, very small paid, but enough for them to build their reputation early on. So they didn't have to spend time and go through the whole process. So every time um, we had the systems in place, there were people that could game the system. And that's something that kind of like my main concern, for example, is even if we have the proof of personhood and everything behind, let's say we're engaging a virtual assistant to help, I don't know, to help Logos co-founder to manage their calendar and all of that. And so the Logos co-founder would think that they are employing the services of a human, but there would be no distinction actually between the human and the AI agent that would represent the human. So at the end of the spectrum, the end client that is engaging service or is engaging the person would not really know if this person is real. Um, and it would not even know if this person maybe delivers similar services to, um, for example, to Shadi, to Maria, to Roxana, to Chair. So it would be, I'm kind of trying to understand what are the things that we could do early on to limit the exploitations that are in place, and kind of this sort of very weird capitalist approach to things that work that end up being middle managed by someone, and then there's a fee at the end.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I think it should be an unsolvable problem, personally speaking. I think there should be leak leakage uh, in situation in say like I don't think this should be like a one identifier, one person type system, because these are the kind of cold systems that eventually become brittle, right? They're just too perfect, they're too crystallized, and in some form or the other become brittle, either in say like their social buy-in or uh, their ability to accomplish their actual goals. Now, I think like yeah, you bring up like a really challenging problem. Pooja talks a lot about this in her recent I guess like what year and a half ago, paper she wrote about how information environments and contexts can be engineered for civil resistance. And I think a lot of that has to do with just like what is the incentive or the value that's, and she bases this off of data that she pulled from Athena protocol, right? Where there was it Athena protocol, where there was an actual incentive to gaming the system, and then the effort to breaking the system was proportional to where the payoff was still worthwhile. So, yeah, I mean, there definitely are ways to know whether an entity matches the claims of their identity that they're having represent them. And that's typically by enforcing like a biophysical presence, right? Like you can do your check in person, do your scan, etc. So, like, depending on the scale that you're approaching, you need to set your set your parameters accordingly relative to the incentives that are at stake and the payoffs that are at stake or the cost that's at stake for would-be attackers. Now there are, I think just back then running KYC and credentialing stuff was a huge challenge before the widespread adoption of ICAO 9303, I believe is what it is, which allows you to do basically, which governments solved this exact issue because they were having much bigger problems on a national security and fraud scale of people creating fake IDs and even like issuers at state departments or passport credentialing offices. Like there's a famous story in Italy how the mafia took over in Venice, or not Venice, in Naples, took over one of the credentialing offices and was like issuing fake passports to the mafia. And they kept doing this until they switched over to the new ICAO standard, which has all the passports have chips in them with a government signature that with a government signature. So, like, you can't just create a fake passport. You can't forge the key unless you have access to the original key. So, the thing was that the mafia thought they knew cryptography or PKI or public key infrastructure. And so they were able to bribe somebody to continue signing these credentials. But as part of it, the key rotates, right? So the mafia would need to elevate their bribe to somebody beyond just the lowly office clerk, at Naples within that district. They would need to go up to the full region area private key or public key rotation. And then that's would escalate as well because the way that they implement the controls. So yeah, I mean, I think like NFC passports and NFC based credentials, not just passports, are really powerful, especially when combined with biometrics on the actual chip. Biometrics can be pretty scary if not implemented correctly. I think having biometrics that can be verified on client side devices. One of my kind of like interesting ones is Amazon has I don't want to say favorite ones, but like definitely interesting ones. Amazon has a selfie camera capable biometric palm scan. So if you go to an Amazon Fresh in the United States after you've registered on your phone by scanning your hand, it takes like a unique identifier of your palm, very much like kind of like WorldCoin or Humanity Protocol. And you can wave your palm to deduct your balance automatically from your Amazon account. Now, there's a lot of ways that that could have been done better. That could have been done with probably client-side encryption. We did, but Amazon servers are running this and storing this data, and Amazon runs the best the best cloud infrastructure in the world, right? But still, we have no idea what's going on with these palm prints on the back end. But what it does do is like give optimism and hey, it is possible to generate pretty decent biometric signals that can be combined with say other signals that we care about, say for hiring or reputation, that are much more difficult to defeat, right? So yeah, so I mean, like, there's we talk about this for a long time. The design really depends on, I think, the use cases, but I would start with what is the cost of forgery within this ecosystem, and then design your verification flows with some parameters held constant, like privacy, data ownership, consent, etc. And there are solutions out there, right? Just it depends on the scale.
Very good points. Thank you. I want to bring this up to Maria. We kind of mentioned some of them during the conversation in the past hour, but I'm curious from your perspective, what are some of the non-negotiable privacy primitives in a sovereign parallel society? This is something I think this is something that has to do with your background and some of your work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of dovetail off of what Shadi said with the AI thing, like it really is like asymptotic and it always will be. And I think like preserving like having an ecosystem where it can be asymptotic and we don't get crystallized into these like rigid institutional structures that become more of an extractive burden than they do like a human empowering force is going to be really important. So to that end, I mean, I definitely think proof of personhood is super important. As as Shadi said, there's so many, you know, different ways to begin addressing this issue. And like we have seen over the past couple of years and will continue to see a digital world that's flooded with synthetic data and not just synthetic data, but also like synthetic activity that seems conscious and that you can communicate with, for lack of a better term. And a lot of why this has been possible is because over the past, you know, like decade plus of where social media and online use has been democratized to everyone, we have just had our, you know, there has been no finger in the dam of data harvesting. And that is a double-edged sword, right? Like on one hand, all this data that we've been committing to these platforms has been super important for the development of these like incredible AI tools. But at the same time, we've been using a lot of personalized data to determine people's identities, to determine what advertising demographic they belong in. We've been using biometric tools to determine which, you know, TikTok face filter looks like the funniest on someone's face. So I think there's going to have to be a discussion at some point about what the right data is for the right problem. So like in the ZK world, there's a few layers obviously, but a big thing is liveness detection. And like, you know, as Shadi mentioned with like the palm scanner, you know, there's multiple different ways to do that. Maybe biometric data is the right way to address liveness detection, or that there's like an actual human behind the screen. It's from my perspective, it's certainly not having something scraping and analyzing the, you know, like thought product of humans to determine if they are human or if they're synthetic. Because as we've seen, that has had unforeseen consequences. So like advertising what was once collected to determine like what pair of socks a person was most likely to buy is now being used to determine what political agenda they'll be most receptive to, with what communication style. It's been used to determine what mimetic initiatives are going to be really effective in persuading people to not care about their data and just treat their data, whether it's behavioral or biometric, as a novelty. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, like most people, like interactions with like artificial intelligence and biometrics and like identity verification are, you know, aligned with like Apple like Face Unlock or let's do a TikTok face filter. But now this same technology is being used at airports all across the world to determine who gets to go into what country. So it is very important, like high quality data. And I think that in addition to building infrastructure that really slows the flow, right? Like a lot of the ZK tools out there, they don't require like an enormous amount of data points to be collected on an individual. They work with a very limited amount of data, and that's great. So in some ways that turns off the spigot to the data, or it creates a system where you don't need to have that excessive data extraction. And the other, so there's the technological infrastructure. So I think obviously ZK, and then what you guys are building, communication and storage systems that are resilient to capture and takedown. I mean, it's been amazing what's happened across the world, and seeing how nation states still have such an effect on access to internet, for instance. So there's the technology, and then there's also the social element. Like, how do we get people to understand that their data is something that's valued, it's something worth protecting? You should like hold it close to your chest, and make sure that the vulnerable parts of like your inner world and your behaviors are not going to be used by institutional forces. And then there's the legal part too. So in a lot of countries, biometrics don't have the same protections as as um, as data that's testimonial data, or data of the mind. So like in the US, for instance, like if your password on your phone is 123, you need a search warrant for that. If you have a fingerprint unlock or a face unlock, you don't need nobody needs a search warrant for that. It can be compelled because it's considered physical versus testimonial. So there's things like that I think like I would really like to see the the digital human rights community working towards. And also working with, I think Vitalik actually had a post about this the other day, about like working with aligned centralized institutions, like working with that law firm that really, gives a shit about privacy, like working with that senator to help push legislation that, reduces the amount of surveillance that's going on in a district, but just using the right tools for the right problem. So
Thank you. I was I was listening to you on the legal side, and I was just thinking of the I always go back to the Privacy Act of 1974, which was very interesting because at the time it sort of proposed a framework to protect individual privacy rights, in terms of access to records, disclosure of information, system of records, amendment rights, uh, fairness practices in terms of information, and accessing information and handling personal data, which has obviously um, gone through quite a few adjustments since 1974. I would say we could, if both of you are available now, we could take some questions from the audience, maybe for another 10 minutes, if that works.
No question for Shadi while the audience contemplates joining us. You mentioned earlier Gitcoin Pass port was acquired by, or is now being used by Human Pass. 1 second. Curious if that still incorporates Bright ID. And yes, I am whistling towards Adam down there, if he's still there. I'm not sure if he's there. He's gone. But yeah, I know Bright ID was a part of that stack. I could go on a very long diatribe. not diatribe. I love Bright ID very much. I think it's underutilized. But is it still part of the stack? Is my question.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, Human Passport is Gitcoin Passport is not Human Passport. It's pretty much the same product. Just we've made a couple modifications to the back end, put in verifiable nullifier, so that's allows us to do things like rate limiting nullifier to solve some of the problems Roxana brought up with, like, how do you know if it's the same person using the same identity across, the same credential across, say, employers or something. And then we
Which
also
rate limiting nullifier package are you guys using, if if I can ask?
it's
Is it the logos?
no, I would love to learn more about that. It's a super basic implementation built off of the VOPRF from Human Network. So it's the bare minimum that we need to just get things working, but would love to maybe if there's like to learn more about what you guys are building. Yeah. But to answer
Well, yeah,
your
I'm not so technically qualified enough to get into our particular RLN implementation, but there are others in the audience there if they're keen to come up, or we'll definitely connect on the side.
sick, yeah, yeah, definitely happy to talk more about like nullifier stuff. So Bright ID was included in the passport stack up until we do quarterly reviews on passports. So we monitor fraud rates for the different stamps using different sources of truth and a bunch of AI ML modeling. And we have a threshold, a fuzzy threshold with which we update, say, okay, well, is this stamp still serving its original function? Is it still, are users still able to use it as intended? Does it still map onto the requirements for privacy, for use of access, etc.? So in the last review cycle, which I actually was not a part of, the passport team removed Bright ID from the list of available stamps. So, but I'm sure if there's some community support for Bright ID, definitely could look at that again.
Certainly there's support for me. Getting word here. If you could send me, Shadi, or just link somewhere what you are using for RLN, and I can. There's the cleanse down there among others, with the gray PFP, and I would point you towards them to. They know the full spectrum of RLN or Logos's RLN library.
Great. Doesn't look like we have questions. We'll do a absolute final ask. If you guys in the audience, ladies and gents, if you want to ask a question, request to speak, and we'll bring you on stage. We do want to wrap up in the next couple of minutes. So this is your absolute last chance, at least for now. I'm pretty sure we'll have the team at Human Tech on our spaces in the future again. Lots of interesting conversations to have. Probably more things to explore and more in detail. Today was kind of I like to say a very decent deep dive for a generic audience, not necessarily going really deep into the tech. But I think we could definitely do this again and have a few of the developers, few of the people that are working on ZK at Logos join in and pick your brains on it. Doesn't look like we have any questions from the audience, so I would say any final. Yeah, let's do a round with any final things that you'd like to share. Keep it within 1 minute. We'll go with Maria first.
Yeah, yeah. No, just thank you for having us. This has been a fascinating conversation, and it's so nice to see uh, you guys aligned around driving the adoption of privacy-preserving primitives. We're doing the same thing, so I just love seeing like the movement happening like across organizations and even globally. And I guess I'll just do a quick announcement of like what we got going on. But we, obviously have our tech stack, and then we have the Covenant community. So if anyone's interested in waxing philosophical with me, we do have manifest.human.tech, and then we've also got a podcast series coming out, which will be dealing with having a lot of conversations with people who are really focused on the digital human rights stuff. And we would love to have you on, Roxana and Chair, at some point. So this is our formal invitation to you. That's all for me.
We will honor it.
Can't
Thank
wait.
you. Shadi, any final words for today, to this morning spaces?
Yeah, it depends on the time zone you're in. Yeah, it'd be cool. I think like it's really great to get to again like step into this intimate space that you guys have opened up. It's really nice to put voices and thoughts to PFPs and to text messages. Definitely down to collaborate more on like builder focused workshops, either at the Parallel Societies conference. Happy to talk about programming there, or both async or in person, and how we could support. And then secondly, also down to help co-initialize maybe a circle here in Paris where we have a good portion of our team. We do have like some semi-regular meetups. Happy to yeah, see if we can do something there on that side. And then other than that, take a look at the Covenant, guys. Submit an artifact, essays, videos, arts. These will all go towards selecting delegates for our governance. So, you know, if you're considering potentially participating or would like to get involved in humanistic tech as an area of field of research of applied technology development, we are putting that call out for you to submit your essays, perspectives, and etc. And yeah, and that's all I got, guys.
Got it. Chair, do you want to do the honor of closing the space?
Oh,
Have we missed anything?
absolutely. Let's go down the line. I'll keep it within a minute. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Special shout out to folks like Declanch and Alishar and M, Opti, OW. I'm going to miss a lot. Adam Stallard, all the regulars, Tiger, Privacy Mage. And if I missed you, I still love you. Status.app is where you find and download the status application where you privately converse and coordinate and use the in-app browser on desktop and wallet. Keycard.tech is where you find Keycard and Shell, the world's only open source and fully air-gapped hardware wallet. Status L2 is taking pre-deposits now in ETH, Linea, SNT, and I think the Aave Ghost token for early karma earning on Status Network. I'm also playing the Karma Climber game on Status Network because it's fun, and I'm looking forward to the other games. Otherwise, the logos.co/events destination to find out what's happening and what is happening closest to you. There are circles literally all over the world. Find the one nearest you if you're keen to lead a circle or learn more about what's happening. Circles.logos.co. Your journey starts at logos.co wherever you go. Follow the Logos account that's hosting, the Logos Tech account just below here if you can find it. Thank you very much to Maria and Shadi from Human Tech. Catch us tomorrow for a research call replay, Thursday for the Logos community space, and Friday for the weekly update.